Episode 4: Horns, Hounds, and the Great White Snout. Bartholomew the ram didn't wait for permission. The itch was overwhelming, a persistent, needling sensation near his ear that demanded immediate, violent relief. With a slow, grinding sigh of pure animal contentment, he began to move his head toward the splintered fence post. Pip, clinging to the curve of the ram's massive horn, felt the approaching danger like a cold wave. The fence post was rough, gray, and thick with moss. One swift, forceful rub would turn him into a very flat, yellow memory. "No! No! No, Mr. Sheep!" Pip shrieked, his voice utterly drowned out by the deep baa of pleasure rumbling in the ram's chest. Think, Pip! The ram's wool was a mountain of friction, and the horn was a smooth, slippery curve. He couldn't climb up, and he couldn't jump off. The ram was still walking quickly enough to make a landing dangerous. He looked down the length of the ram's face. Bartholomew's mouth was still working contentedly on the clover, his tongue occasionally flicking out. And above the mouth, near the ram's moist black nose, was a patch of relatively short, stiff hair, the nose bridge. It was a risky, desperate maneuver. Pip pulled his legs up, transforming himself into a tiny yellow ball, and launched himself off the ram's horn with a desperate flick of his body. He tumbled down the long, scratchy slope of the ram's nose, picking up speed, a tiny, fuzzy avalanche. He hit the bridge of Bartholomew's nose with a dizzying boing. He grabbed hold of a stiff, wiry hair just as Bartholomew's massive forehead thwacked against the fence post. Crunch! The whole world shuddered. Splinters flew everywhere, and Bartholomew sighed happily, satisfied by the relief. Pip held on tight, riding the tremors like a tiny rodeo star. He was safe for a second, but now he was perched at the very tip of the giant ram's nose, the equivalent of standing on the edge of a cliff. He looked ahead. The farmyard stretched out, sun-dappled and perilous. He needed to get to the main barn, which was closer to the coop. Just then, Bartholomew sneezed. It was a colossal, farm-shaking "N-chew!" A powerful blast of warm, moist air and fine green dust launched Pip off the nose. He flew, spinning end over end, a tiny yellow comet, sailing right over the fence and landing with a soft, miraculous plop onto a giant black and white striped tail. He was back on a moving animal. The tail belonged to Bessie, the largest and most serene cow on the farm. Bessie was slow, methodical, and currently focused on chewing her cud near the watering trough. Pip quickly scrambled up the tail, which was coarser than the sheep's wool and smelled powerfully of the dairy barn. He climbed until he reached Bessie's warm, mountainous back. From this high vantage point, he spotted a pathway. The pathway wasn't grass or mud. It was a perfect, flat, brown trail that led right past the milk stand and toward the main barn entrance. It was the dog's path. As if on cue, a bounding, frantic figure burst into view, running toward the cow. It was Winston, the farm's energetic, somewhat clumsy sheepdog. Winston loved his job, and he loved running. Winston saw Bessie and decided the cow needed a good, enthusiastic herding. He let out a loud, joyous woof, woof, woof that sounded to Pip like a double-barreled shotgun going off nearby. Winston, running at full speed, misjudged his distance. He didn't stop in front of Bessie. He slid, his forepaws losing traction on the dry path, and slid directly beneath the cow's large, supporting belly. Bessie, entirely undisturbed by the frantic dog scraping under her, simply lifted her head to chew, causing her gigantic bell to clang-clong-clong right above Winston's head. Pip, still riding on Bessie's back, realized the dog's path was his only exit. He waited until Winston had successfully scraped himself out from under the cow, shaking his head and sneezing dust. As Winston paused, Pip jumped, aiming for the dog's head. He landed on the dog's large, floppy ear, sliding down the black fur until he was precariously perched on the scruff of Winston's neck. Winston didn't even notice the featherlight addition. He simply saw the path ahead and decided it was time for a high-speed chase. With another excited yip, Winston bolted toward the open door of the main barn. Pip clung on for dear life as the world blurred into a riot of color and speed. The barn doors loomed large. They shot inside, the air immediately cooling and darkening. The barn was a place of deep shadows and immense wooden pillars. The scent was overpowering: old hay, sharp manure, and cool, stale air. Winston, thinking he had successfully herded the cow to safety, even though the cow was still outside, slid to a stop near a stack of feed bags. Then he did what all excited, tired dogs do. He shook himself vigorously from nose to tail. Rattle, rattle, jiggle. Pip, unable to hold on against the violent shaking, was flung off. He sailed through the air and landed directly inside a wide, deep metal bucket full of something round, brown, and hard. He landed with a loud, hollow clank. The bucket instantly began to move, lifted by two large, calloused human hands. "There you go, Rosie. Breakfast is served." The bucket tilted. Pip, sitting amongst the hard, crunchy feed pellets, began to slide forward toward the open mouth of the last creature in the farmyard, a huge, pink, and decidedly hungry Rosie the Sow, who was waiting patiently at the feed trough.